Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum.
Om Namo Manjushriye Namo Sishriye Namo Tamashriye Soha. Om Namo Manjushriye Namo Sishriye Namo Tamashriye Soha.
Sorry I'm late. I walked out of my house without my book, so I had to go back. Good thing I remembered before I got too far. Okay, so let's do some prayers, and then we'll do a little bit of meditation.
To the teacher endowed, transcendent destroyer, one thus gone, foe destroyer, completely and fully awakened one, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, one gone to bliss, know of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans to you, the Buddha endowed, transcendent destroyer, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I bow. With pure bodies formed supremely fine, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, supreme guide, to you I bow. With the supreme science, face like the spotless moon, color like gold, to you I bow. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not incomparable, wise one, to you I bow. Great, compassionate protector, all-knowing teacher, field of merit and good qualities, vast as an ocean, to the Tathagata I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from the lower realms. Unique, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma that is peace I bow. Having freed themselves, showing the path to freedom, too well established in the trainings. The holy field, endow with good qualities, to the Sangha I bow. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble. A dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through this merit may sentient beings attain the state of all-seeing, subdue the four faults, and be delivered from the ocean of cyclic existence perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn Mount Meru, 4 lands, sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you. May all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings.
So sit quietly for a few minutes to settle down your body and mind in the present moment, present place, present time. And refresh the bodhicitta motivation you generated earlier today so that your reason, your motivation for being here, participating in this class is as positive as possible, wanting to reach enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings and wanting to help sentient beings as much as possible between now and then. So for the meditation, a few weeks ago we learned about a special kind of intention, one that motivates the mind to eliminate laxity and excitement. And Geshe Zopa's explanation said that this intention is the desire to initiate application of the appropriate antidote to laxity and excitement. And he also said that it's part of the antidote. It brings you to choose an object to energize your mind when there's laxity or overcome excitement. So it's very important to have this attitude, not only for the practice of shamatha, but for any kind of meditation or practice that we do, in order for them to be successful and lead to the good qualities and realizations we need to progress on the path to awakening. So see if you can remember a time in your practice when you did have this intention when you notice some fault in your meditation practice or a fault to any kind of practice you're doing, and you felt the strong intention to apply an antidote to this fault. So to see if you can remember such an occasion. And then see if you can recall a time when you didn't have this intention, when there was some fault, some mistake happening in your practice, but you just let it go. You didn't apply an antidote. So hopefully you can see in your own experience how important it is to have this kind of intention to apply antidotes. And think of some ways that you can make this intention stronger so that it's there more often in your mind, enabling you to overcome faults. So what are some things you can do to strengthen that intention? Would anyone like to share any of the methods they thought of to have this intention, stronger intention to overcome faults?
I hope this applies. When I first learned the 35 Buddhas back in 1999, I really had a lot of intention about the purpose of that. But as the years went on and it was so rote that I could be 3,000 miles away in my head and do the entire practice, even generating negative, afflictive states of mind while doing it. And I was like, boy, Samke, you're just wasting some serious time here. So I think it was during COVID. I don't know, maybe there's something about the vulnerability of the human family during that time. But I started to have a much more sincere process in the four opponent powers. So the distraction was around objects of attachment or objects of aversion during the course previously, during the practice previously. And then I started to really focus on the things that were struggles living in community, where my difficulties arose, what the actions of body and speech. And then as we went through the words, really listening to what we were saying, and it brought a whole new different, it's not perfect, but I certainly got more benefit from it than I had had for many, many years, because I wasn't caring enough about my own karma that I was creating, and that this was an opportunity of this life to be able to purify a lot of that. So it came up to, and now it's just the four opponent powers are just really, whether I do the 35 Buddhas or not, I put them in some part of my day to see how I'm doing. So the distractions were like, the laxity, I was just out in La La Land. That's not laxity, but that was, spaced outness. Or I was attached to something and wandering off into some object of attachment while I'm doing the practice by rote, every word, and not paying attention to anything I'm saying.
Easy to happen. Yeah, so just to be able to catch that happening and then realize how unhelpful that is, what a waste of time it is, and bring yourself back to the practice, because there's so much within each of the practices we do that are so rich, so meaningful and beneficial if we just focus on them. Thank you. Anyone else?
Mine was very much this morning, so I was working on concentration, which is probably why I noticed this, but I kept coming back to a grumbling about an action someone had done. And I caught it after about grumble 3, which was pretty good. And I thought, and I went right to trying to recall the disadvantages of anger. And it wasn't very helpful. Because I got caught up in, okay, what's the order? What's on the list? But then I went right to may that person be happy. And really changing the mood. And it was not a big deal, so it was something that actually could be turned with that. Sometimes I can't go there because if I'm really angry, I can't. But it did help. And then just settling that down and being able to go back to the concentration, which still wasn't very good, but it wasn't angry. Yeah.
Two things that came to my mind that I've been working on during the retreat. One is increasing mindfulness. I've gotten very lax in practicing mindfulness, and so specifically bringing that in each day in a formal session of breathing meditation, that's been helpful to be somewhat more aware of what's happening in my mind. And then the other thing is becoming a lot more familiar with antidotes. I think we can always become more familiar with antidotes so that they pop up sooner and can be applied more effectively.
There's usually a theme of the week or the day in terms of my afflictions, what I'm grumbling about, or what I'm getting pulled away from. So I think I'm more successful at keeping myself on track if right at the beginning of the session, I'm like, this session is not about you meditating about this problem. And just naming it at the start. It's like, don't go there. Like, that this session is not about this, or to approach it in a, you can meditate on the faults of anger, or you can antidote this, you can explore this, but not spin around this. So I think kind of disciplining myself at the start, or just bringing my kind of kind awareness, don't do that to yourself. Right off the bat, I think that will help.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, very much me.
So what I thought about is sometimes I can notice very quickly when I start to get dull and going into a lot of laxity, and so I just open my eyes and bring the light in, and that's usually enough to get me where I need to be. When it doesn't, and I don't do that step, and instead I just kind of go with the laxity, my self-centered attitude is really strong, and I can at least see that. So sometimes then I go off on that thing to see, this is that solid me that's, wanting to do this, which isn't helpful. And so I can work with it that way sometimes.
Yeah, they do say that when we visualize, it is better to keep our eyes open, which seems kind of counterintuitive, but yeah, they say your visualization will be better with your eyes open rather than closed. Not like, and that doesn't have to be wide open, but partially open, looking down. But, yeah. So, at the end of last week's class, there was a question from Venerable Ngawan about laziness, which is the first of the 5 faults. And I said that what I had heard or read, I don't remember where I got this from, but that in the context of shamatha, laziness is reluctance to meditate, just this feeling like, I don't really want to meditate, I'm tired of meditating, something like that. So, but then I was thinking about it afterwards, and it seems that other forms of laziness, there's lots of different kinds of laziness, that other kinds of laziness can also be hindrances to calm abiding. So, for example, the laziness of discouragement, that might be the sense of low self-esteem that Venerable Dekhi talked about last week. Thinking, I can't do this, it's too hard, I'm hopeless, that kind of thing, that sort of thought. I think that's the laziness of discouragement, and that could certainly be an obstacle, because if you think you can't do it, if you think you're hopeless, then you don't have the energy to try. You just kind of sink into a kind of depression. And I think this kind of attitude can easily arise when we get teachings on shamatha, because we hear how essential it is to have shamatha. We have to get it in order to progress on the path. And then they lay out all these different stages, which we're going to look at today. And then, then we compare that with our practice. And it seems like, oh my God, I can't do this. This is too hard. And or it could also happen if we hear other people raving about their experiences in meditation, the bliss that they feel, And and there's people, around who talk about achieving the jhanas, and I feel, oh my God, and I can't even stay on my object for more than 2 seconds. So, so it can easily lead to this kind of feeling of hopelessness, kind of self-deprecation, discouragement, low self-esteem, that kind of thought. So that's a kind of laziness. And I was thinking too, it's a little bit, the way the teachings are given, it's a little bit like situations in life. For example, in school where there's ranking and hierarchy, and you're kind of graded according to how well you do. And then if you find yourself on the lower end of that grading system or hierarchy, then there's feelings of humiliation, or feeling inferior, and so on. So we probably encountered that kind of system in life already, and then getting into these teachings can remind us of that, and similar sorts of feelings can come up, including not just a feeling of inferiority, but also competitiveness, things like, like we have to compete with others to see who can get to shamatha more quickly. And jealousy, and those who are having or seeming to have, we don't really know, what's going on in other people's minds, but sometimes it can seem like other people are doing better. So if we do have thoughts like that coming up in the mind, it's important to recognize them and then ask ourselves, is this useful? Is this way of thinking useful? Thinking, I'm hopeless, I can't do it, I'm lousy. So I think it's probably obvious that it's not helpful and doesn't lead to positive results. And then to realize we do have a choice. We don't have to go with those thoughts. We don't have to believe in them, buy into them, let our mind be affected by them. There is a choice. And we can replace those thoughts with more positive ones, like rejoicing. If there's someone who's achieved a jhana, who's achieved shamatha, how wonderful, rejoice. And that's a much more positive, that's actually virtuous. That's a virtuous thought. And it's one that will help us get there rather than jealousy, which will take us in the opposite direction. And also learn to be happy with where we're at and what we are able to do. That's much more helpful than feeling hopeless and jealous, competitive, and so on. Just it's kind of a humility, sense of humility and good enough. That sense, okay, I'm doing the best I can, and this is good enough. The Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are happy with me. They're not looking down on me. This is my mind that's thinking that way, not the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So just, those are some examples, but try to find thoughts that will counteract the discouragement, self-deprecation, and so on. Don't let your mind be ruled by them. And also have confidence that if we keep practicing, we don't give up, but we keep practicing, little by little, tiny step by tiny step, then our practice will get better. If we follow the advice of our teachers and great masters like Lama Tsongkhapa. I mean, he'd probably practiced many, many lifetimes before he got to that life, and was able to, go very quickly, attain realizations. So we just need to keep practicing to the best of our ability, and eventually it will improve. And we may not attain shamatha in this life. I think it's actually very, very difficult to attain shamatha. But if we create the causes, then in some future life, next life, or maybe 100 lives away, when sometime in the future we'll get there. So think like that, rather than I have to get there this lifetime. that's not helpful. And you'll probably just get lung, meditator's disease. So yeah, that laziness of discouragement can be a hindrance, an obstacle. And then there's another kind of laziness, procrastination. So that could also happen. Like you might think, yeah, I really need to practice shamatha, but right now I got so many other things to do, and I'll do it later. Yeah, so keep putting it off, and never getting around to even trying to work on it. So that's not helpful. So even if we just do 5 minutes a day, yeah, like Venerable Sangye was saying, just do some breathing meditation and train mindfulness to stay in the present. Even just 5 minutes a day, you're starting to go in that direction, starting to improve your concentration. And then there's the laziness of being attached to unwholesome things. So that certainly could be an obstacle if you spend all your time doing other things, some of which may not be completely unwholesome, but take you away from your practice of meditation. But yeah, sometimes we're attached to things that are unwholesome, that are negative. Can't give those up. So yeah, that would also be an obstacle to shamatha. And they also sometimes mention the laziness of indolence. We just like to sleep more than we really need to, lie around and do nothing. So, yeah, you might think, oh, I really want to get up early and do some meditation. But then you're in bed and the alarm goes off and it just feels so comfortable and cozy in bed and you like sleep so much. So you just keep sleeping and don't get up and do meditation. So that could certainly be an obstacle. Yeah. Yeah, so I think all forms of laziness can be a hindrance to shamatha. But also, I think some people just find it hard to meditate. Yeah, sometimes some people have trouble even sitting still. Maybe there's some, what's that thing, ADHD? ADHD, yeah, it's just so hard to even sit still for a few minutes. So, I mean, if you do find it really, really hard to meditate, then I think you have to pace yourself. You have to just do what you can. And try different ways of meditating or different ways of dealing with restlessness, or just find some way to even do a little bit of practice every day. And also, there's other kinds of practices, not just meditation. You know, having spent time in Asia, I have the impression that probably the majority of Buddhists don't really meditate, you know. We sometimes get this idea, oh, if you're a Buddhist, you have to meditate. But I think, you know, I mean, of course, the monks, the monastics, they practice meditation, but the lay people, I don't think they do much meditation. Some do, but you know, a lot of them don't. But they practice in other ways, practice generosity, keep ethics, live ethically, go to the temple, make offerings, and so on. So there's other ways of practicing the Dharma and following the path. So if it's too hard to meditate for you in this lifetime, then don't feel bad, don't beat yourself up, don't think you're hopeless. Just find other ways of practicing Dharma. And then have the aspiration in the future to be able to do more and do better. And even in this life, things could change. You might find that your mind settles down, your body settles down, and you're able to meditate. So that could happen. But yeah, it is hard to work with the mind. In fact, I once heard a teacher relate something from a sutra. I don't know what sutra this is, but apparently the Buddha said that conquering one's mind is more difficult than conquering 1,000 armies, each with 1,000 soldiers, which means 1,000,000 soldiers, right? So single-handedly conquering 1,000,000 soldiers is easier than conquering your mind. Has anyone else ever heard that one? You heard it? Yeah? We're in Chinese tradition? Yeah, so it must be in one of the sutras. So if you're finding it hard to conquer your mind, don't be surprised. Don't feel bad. And then a kind of more contemporary story. I heard about one Tibetan monk who had, after the Chinese took over, they put a lot of monks in prison. So he was in prison for a long time, maybe 20 years or something, and during that time had a lot of horrible experiences and torture and beating and so on. And then he was finally released and left Tibet and went to India and went to Dharamsala. And then he went up in the mountains above Dharamsala and stayed in a little hut. There's meditators up there. And he was trying to meditate. I don't know what kind of practice he was doing. But anyway, at some point, he had a chance to meet the Dalai Lama. He had a private interview with the Dalai Lama. And he told the Dalai Lama that trying to concentrate his mind was more difficult than the beatings and torture and horrible experiences he had in prison. That was easier to deal with than dealing with his mind. So that gives you some idea that, yeah, it is difficult working with our mind, conquering our mind, dealing with the afflictions. So, yeah, but, it's not impossible. We have to remember afflictions are adventitious, transitory, not inherently existing, not an inherent part of our mind, and it is possible to overcome them. And there are antidotes that can do that. Others, like the Buddha and other great masters of the past, were able to subdue their afflictions and get rid of them. And we can do that too. Just a question of working, continuing to practice and not giving up. Now, and then we were also talking about light, and how light is a antidote to laxity. And Venerable Chuni asked a question: does that mean you have to actually switch? And it seems like you do. If you're experiencing laxity and you want to use light to counteract that, you do, at least for a while, switch to focusing on light, because there's a quotation in from a Sangha in his text Shravaka Levels that says, "Hold in meditation the sign of brightness from the light of an oil lamp, the light of a bonfire, or the orb of a sun." So it does seem that you need to use light as the focus for a while, however long it takes to overcome the laxity. But then I was thinking, if your your meditation object, is a Buddha figure, and they are made of light, right? Like Guru Shakyamuni Buddha or White Tara, I wondered if you could just increase the brightness of that. Like if you have a dimmer switch in your mind, in your brain, and you can sort of turn it up, make it brighter. And Lama Tsongkhapa doesn't mention that. I couldn't find that in his text, but in Geshe Lodin's book, Path to Enlightenment in Tibetan Buddhism, which is actually a commentary to the Lamrim Chenmo. So he says, the fault of laxity is that the mind becomes too withdrawn. To overcome this, you should extend the object, expand it, increase its brightness, and focus on its details. So maybe you could try that. Yeah, just try to turn up the dimmer switch on your Buddha figure or white tar figure. I don't know how you do that if you're using the breath or loving kindness, but yeah. So now we are about to start a new chapter and some new outlines. So I did make a slide for these. I don't know if everyone has a copy of the book, but so this is chapter 21, page 313. It's called Accomplishing Shamatha. So it says the stages of shamatha that arise in reliance upon it. So that's an outline point that comes from page 290. At the top of 290, the explanation of shamatha has two parts: the way to generate flawless concentration. So that's what we just went through, how to generate flawless concentration. And then second is the stages of shamatha that arise in reliance upon it. So it, I guess, means how to generate flawless concentration. So this has 3 points: the actual stages of shamatha that arise, the method for accomplishing them by means of the 6 powers, and how they involve the 4 types of attention. So first are the 9 stages of shamatha. So you've been through these before, but it doesn't hurt to go through them again, although the explanation here in the book is quite brief. So the actual stages of shamatha that arise, this first one has 9 points. First, placing the mind. So that's the first of the 9 stages. Placing the mind on something is to draw the mind away from all external objects and direct it toward the object within. Ornament for the Mahayana Sutras says, having directed the mind toward the object. So this simply means, we choose an object to focus on, and then we sit ourselves down and focus our mind on that object. And it will probably only stay for a few seconds. And then distractions will come, our mind will wander. But at least we try, yeah? So that's something we need to give ourselves credit for. You've reached the first stage of shamatha. Wow. And yeah. It says that during this first stage, when you're doing a session of meditation, most of the time your mind is not on the object. Most of the time your mind is off the object. Only occasionally you remember the object. But yeah, that's how it goes. But we have to keep persevering, trying. And then eventually we'll get to the second stage. So this is called continuous placement. So in continuous placement, the directed mind is continuously placed on the object over a period of time without it being distracted to anything else. And the ornament from Mahayana Sutra says, continuously prevent it from getting distracted. So here he just says a period of time, no specific period mentioned, but some texts, including Geshe Zopa's, say that about a minute. Right? So here you get to the point where you can keep your mind on the object for about a minute. And or they also say the amount of time it takes to recite 1 mala of Om Mani Padme Hums. And That's about a minute. And I figured with the breathing, just normal breathing, it's 10 breaths. So if you can keep your mind on your object without running away for 10 breaths, you've reached the second stage. That's pretty good. Yay! Even if it's not like that all the time, but occasionally during a session, you will have that experience of being able to stay focused for 1 minute. And it's also said that when, in these first 2 stages, you may have the impression that your mind is more busy than usual. This is even mentioned in some of the texts. I think Kamala Shila mentions this. So even back in his days, like 8th century or whatever, meditators would find that, would have that impression that their mind gets busier when they're trying to meditate than in other times. Have you ever had that impression? Well, it happens in the beginning. Usually in the beginning, people think, gosh, before I was meditating, my mind wasn't so bad, and now it's just like completely berserk, completely crazy. So they say that it's not true. That idea isn't true. Our mind is always busy, constantly busy, but we just don't notice it. When we're not trying to sit and concentrate, we're paying attention to all kinds of other things around us and so on. So we're not that much aware of our mind, what's going on in our mind. But when we sit down to meditate, try to focus our mind, then we become aware of the internal situation of our mind, and then we notice how busy it is. It's always busy, but we just don't notice it. So it wouldn't be correct to think that way. And some people might think, oh gosh, meditation isn't good for me. It's making my mind crazy. I don't know. Some people might think that way. But it's not like that. Meditation is not making your mind more busy. It's just making you aware of how busy and berserk your mind is all the time. It means you got a lot of work to do. I remember once one course I was teaching, this one woman said that she took up the practice of meditation in order to feel more peaceful. But it didn't make her feel more peaceful. Her mind was all these thoughts in her mind. So I don't know, when they have these advertisements for meditation, and pictures, they have a picture of somebody sitting there, and usually on a grass, in a garden, looking so peaceful. So I think it can be a bit deceptive. Maybe very deceptive. Or maybe some people don't have so many crazy thoughts. It's possible. Yeah, so it said that the difference between the first 2 stages is in the duration of time that you can keep your mind on the object. But on both of these stages, there's a lot of excitement, also laxity, but we probably don't notice that so much, but other things as well. Sleepiness, and other kinds of afflictions coming up, so all kinds of things. But if we persevere, we don't give up, we can get to the 3rd stage. And here it's called patchy placement. In patchy placement, if you get distracted because of forgetfulness so that you are pulled away to external things, you realize it and tie your mind to the object once again. And the quote, realizing distraction quickly, you should patch it up again. So here you're more quick to notice when your mind has wandered away. In the earlier stages, it may take you a long time before you realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be watching my breath and not thinking about the movie I watched last night. So here on the 3rd stage, you're able to realize when your mind wanders away more quickly, and you can bring it back. So it's like patching a hole in your practice, in your mindfulness of your object. So yeah, on this stage, the duration of distractions is shorter. Your mindfulness and introspective awareness are getting stronger. And then the fourth stage is called close placement. Close placement is explained in instructions on the perfection of wisdom as enhancing placement by repeatedly drawing in and refining the mind, which is expansive by nature. This accords with the statement, intelligent people should more and more draw their minds inside. So, in the Lamrim Chenmo, Lama Tsongkhapa says that with this mental state, you have eliminated distraction, and with effort, place your attention upon the object of meditation. I don't know about eliminated distraction. That sounds maybe not quite to be taken literally. You can still have distractions. So some texts say that at this stage you no longer forget the object during your session of meditation. So you're able to put your mind on your object at the beginning of your session and not lose it, not forget it, not wander away. So the fault of forgetfulness, forgetting the object, is no longer there. That's been pacified. You have really strong mindfulness. And some I've also heard say that you no longer have coarse excitement. Coarse excitement is when your mind runs away from your object to some other object that you're attached to. So some say that is no longer present. You still have subtle excitement, that underlying undercurrent of thinking, but no more coarse excitement. So yeah, I found that different texts explain these stages differently, say different things. So you have to sort of look at a number of them and figure out. It could be because the original text, like the texts of Maitreya and Asanga, didn't really say a whole lot. Very few words. So then it left it up to later writers, meditators, and so on to come up with interpretations of them. Geshe Zopa in his commentary says, the fourth stage is far superior to the first three stages because this is the first time mental wandering ceases. There may be some subtle excitement, but you never completely lose your object of meditation during your session. Now, nonetheless, you still have to apply appropriate antidotes when subtle faults arise. So your concentration is getting much better, your mindfulness is stronger, you're able to keep your mind on the object for the duration of your session. And this happens because of familiarity, because of practice, training. You have been training your mind to stay on the object and keep coming back to the object when it wanders away. And so gradually that training works out, and you are able to stay longer and longer on your object, on your meditation object. And then the fifth stage is called taming. Taming is to reflect on and rejoice in the excellent qualities of concentration. Then, as you see the excellent qualities, the mind is tamed in concentration. So here, your introspective awareness is strong. And it's also said that you take delight in meditative concentration. So that sounds like up until now, maybe you're not so delighted. Maybe it's hard work and you're not always so happy and delighted to sit down and meditate and try to keep your mind concentrated. But here, yeah, the work you've done earlier pays off, and now you start being happy. And I think that, yeah, as your mind does learn to stay focused on the object, it naturally brings happiness, it brings some bliss. I think concentration is naturally blissful. You might notice that if you have even just a few moments, a few minutes of being able to stay focused, it's kind of blissful. So, so I think you start seeing for yourself that this is good. This practice, even if it's hard work, it's good, it feels good. So, so that probably is why you feel more delighted to concentrate. But yeah, it's also said it's because you have reflected on the good qualities and the benefits and the value of shamatha. So you've been thinking about those things, and you're really convinced that, yeah, shamatha is a good thing. It will bring good qualities, it has a lot of benefits, it's very valuable. So you're really convinced. Not just because your teachers tell you, but because you yourself have thought about it and come to that conclusion. And you have conviction that, yeah, this is a good thing to do. So you're happy to do the practice. And you're less interested in distractions like sense objects. So you've probably also been meditating on, the faults of letting your mind run away to sense objects. So you're less inclined to let that happen. So it said coarse laxity is tamed on this stage, but you still have trouble with subtle laxity and subtle excitement. So here you learn how to deal with coarse laxity. That's where, the mind gets really sunken into the object and dull. So mindfulness was the main antidote on the first 4 stages. So to progress on those first 4 stages, we needed really strong mindfulness. But now, from the 5th stage on, introspective awareness is the primary antidote. So that's being able to recognize faults in our practice and apply antidotes to them. And tame them. That's why it's called taming. And then number 6 is called pacification. Pacification is to view distraction as a fault and pacify dislike for concentration. So it sounds like it's still a little bit of dislike, resistance to meditation left, but on the 6th stage, that's finished. By the 6th stage, there's no more kind of resistance for meditation, dislike for meditation. And this is due to seeing the disadvantages of a distracted mind. So you really want to develop shamatha. Keshizopa says, on this stage, a special kind of powerful introspection cuts off distraction, like objects of desire, subduing them before they take hold. So you can see them coming and even, deal with them before they come up strong and take over the mind. It is very powerful. It is a very powerful vigilance that looks at what is coming, what is ready to come, and what is attempting to come. I guess you know your mind really well by this point, and you can see the signs of desire or other things coming up and deal with them. It can apply appropriate antidotes before they actually rise. So very powerful introspective awareness. So in this stage, you still have subtle laxity and subtle excitement, but much less than previously. 7 is complete pacification. This is to completely pacify whatever mental states of attachment, unhappiness, lethargy, sleepiness, and so forth occur. There's still some unhappiness coming up and attachment and so on, but you can pacify them. So attachment, unhappiness, and the like should be pacified as they arise. So there's still some subtle excitement and laxity that can arise, but they're quickly, you notice them very, very quickly and deal with them, stop them. So that's why it's called complete pacification. Number 8, single-pointedness is to make an effort for the sake of effortless engagement. Then, by means of restraint and effort, with full attention of the mind, you get it to come about naturally. So it's said that here you need a small amount of effort at the beginning of your session to focus your mind on the object. But once you do that, the mind just stays on the object without interruption for a long period of time. You just need a little gas at the beginning to get going. And then, whew, it's on automatic. And again, this is due to all the training and practice done on the earlier stages. And then 9, even placement is said in stages of meditation to be the equanimity when the mind has become balanced. So we looked at equanimity before. That's when the mind is able to remain in a state of balance, equipoise, without being disturbed by laxity and excitement. In Instructions on the Perfection of Wisdom, it is said to be spontaneous, natural engagement and the attainment of control owing to the habit of unifying the mind stream. In accordance with that, Ornament for the Mahayana Sutras also says, since it's habitual, there's no application. So it's like due to habit, familiarity of focusing on that same object again and again and again, hours and hours and hours, days and days and days, then it just stays on the object effortlessly. You don't even have to make effort to generate mindfulness, introspective awareness, and overcome obstacles. It sounds like they just don't even arise anymore. So it's just like an automatic flow of concentration on the object. So it's said that, this is really amazing when you get to the 9th stage. And some people think that is shamatha when they've gotten to that 9th stage. But he'll explain later that no, there's a difference between the 9th stage and shamatha. So we'll look at that later. So then it says, the names of these 9 mental states are as quoted in sources such as the first stages of meditation, which says, this path of shamatha is explained in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, and so on. You should act in accordance with quotations like these. It seems like in the Theravada tradition, they don't have these 9 stages, right? You're on that section of the Volume 4, going through the Pali, how it's explained in the Pali Canon. I just had a quick look at it. And it seems that they don't talk about these 9 stages and so on. So it does seem to be, it says here, Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, and then Maitreya's text, Ornament for Mahayana sutras and Asanga's commentaries. It does seem to be in the Mahayana tradition, but not in the Theravada tradition. They have different ways of explaining. Is that right?
Just getting there.
Hmm?
We're just getting there to the stages of in the Pali tradition.
Okay.
We're reviewing everything from last time when it was doing it.
Oh, I see.
How and like where does the clarity and balance, what's the word for stability, where do those two factors, or is that already handled before you get into measuring the stages? Like, where does, how do you, anyway, where does that fit in this, or is it just a whole different presentation?
No, I think it's not specifically mentioned here, but I think stability means just the ability to stay on the object. Your mind is sitting still, stable on the object. So, I mean, the first stage, that's a few seconds. In the second stage, it's a minute. And then, as you go through these stages, that stability increases more and more. And by, 8 and 9, it's just like your whole session, or even before that. Even on stage 4, some say your mind stays on the object the whole session. You still have other stuff going on, like subtle excitement and laxity, but at least your mind is on the object. So that's already pretty strong by stage 4, stability. And then the clarity, that is the opposite of laxity. So, I mean, lack of clarity is probably there right from the beginning. And then you have to work on laxity. You have to notice laxity, the lack of clarity, a lack of vividness, and work on that. And so, as you progress, that gets better and better. So clarity gets better and better. And it seems like still some laxity, I guess, on the 8th stage, but by the 9th stage, there's no more laxity. That isn't a fault anymore. So there you would have good, strong clarity, vividness, all through your session. So those two qualities, stability and laxity, and stability and clarity, grow, develop as you're going through these stages. Well, by overcoming their opposite. Yeah, by overcoming excitement, which is the opposite of stability. So by overcoming excitement, then you have more stability. And then by overcoming laxity, the other main fault, then you have more clarity. Yeah, so when you overcome those faults, excitement and laxity, then, I guess you can say naturally there will be stability and clarity. But you have to work on it.
Thank you, that's super helpful.
Any others before we go on? So then, I think I didn't read that last bit. The names of these 9 mental... Did I read that? Okay. Then it says, you should act in accordance with quotations like these. Okay, so the next point is the method for accomplishing them by means of the 6 powers. So the 6 powers, so these are, factors that will enable us to attain the 9 stages. So the 6 powers are those of hearing, thinking, mindfulness, vigilance, joyous effort, and thorough acquaintance. Okay, so the first, the mental state of placement, that's the first of the stages, is accomplished through the power of hearing. For it is merely first tying the mind to the object and following just the instructions you have heard from someone on how to place the mind on an object. It is not something that you have become familiar with through repeated reflections. Okay, so the power of hearing is, like, for example, in our experience, we go to a meditation class, and there's a person there, might be a teacher, might be just an older student, more experienced student, and they're guiding meditation. They say, okay, sit down, da-da-da-da-da, then focus your mind on your breathing, da-da-da-da-da. And if we listen and follow the instructions, then we'll be able to get that first stage, being able to keep our mind on an object for at least a few seconds. And we'll probably be advised to bring the mind back to that object when it wanders away, so we'll try to do that. So it's not enough just to listen and hear, we also have to follow the instructions. Yeah, I don't know, like when there's a meditation class, if you're sitting in the back of the room and watching people, you might see some funny things. Somebody's spacing out, looking out the window, looking around at other people, doodling in their notebook. So yeah, you have to have this willingness to follow the instructions and try to do what the teacher is asking you to do in order to get to that first stage. And Geshe Zopa says, this can also refer to learning from books. Some people, get a book on meditation and read the book and follow the instructions. So they haven't actually heard instructions, but they've learned it from books, and they can still, start practicing. I know some people who just started practicing meditation on their own and didn't have any teacher, didn't have any group, but just did it on their own and were able to have good discipline. I'm really amazed at that. Probably imprints from past life. Okay, then the mental state of continuous placement is accomplished through the power of thinking, second power. For you keep thinking about the continuation of that first bond with the object and maintain it. From that, you will initially achieve the capacity for a somewhat connected continuity. So the power of thinking or reflecting, it seems like this means you think about, you contemplate instructions that you've heard or read, and then when you gain a better understanding of the instructions and you get better able to practice on your own, so your mind is able to stay longer on the object. And I wonder if it also includes getting more familiar with the object. Yeah, so like if the object is the Buddha, it's for most of us an unfamiliar object before we start learning Buddhism and looking at images of Buddha. So they say, to help your visualization of the Buddha, it's good to look at, images, tankas, pictures, statues, and just get really, really familiar with all the details, what that image looks like, and then it's easier to visualize that in your meditation. So I wonder if that's also what is meant here by thinking. But yeah, the point here is that first state, you're just hearing instruction from somebody else, and that helps you get started. But with the second power, you have taken initiative and thought more about the practice, the instructions, your object. So it's more coming from yourself, from your mind, rather than from somebody else. Third, okay, then the two mental states of patchy placement and close placement, the third and fourth stages, are accomplished through the power of mindfulness. For when the mind is distracted from the object, you are mindful of the earlier object and collect the mind back within. You generate the power of mindfulness from the start and do not let your mind get distracted from the object. So the power of mindfulness, so we learn what mindfulness is, we get familiar with mindfulness, we cultivate mindfulness, train our mind in mindfulness by just continuing to remember the object again and again and again. So that's like building up mindfulness muscle, so it's stronger and stronger and enables us to stay on the object longer. And so that enables us to achieve the third and the fourth stages of calm abiding. Then you accomplish the two mental states of... I skipped one paragraph. Then the two mental states of taming and pacification, that's 6 and 7, are accomplished through the power of vigilance or introspective awareness, fourth power. 4, through recognizing with vigilance the faults of scattering toward conceptualization and toward the signs of secondary afflictions, and through viewing them as faults, you do not allow your mind to scatter toward those two. So the power of vigilance or introspective awareness, so we need to, develop that. And it's said that sounds like a byproduct of mindfulness. When we have mindfulness, then vigilance or introspective awareness will also be there. So as we increase our mindfulness, we also increase our introspective awareness. But it seems like we also need to recognize the faults of distractions and the afflictions. Here it says secondary afflictions, but I think the root ones as well, they're probably still there, attachment and anger and so on. So we really have to be convinced that those are faulty. See their faults, how they're cause of suffering and problems, and really not want to let our mind get caught up in them, even for a moment. And conceptualization, all the blah, 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 the thinking that goes on, the ruminating, and remembering things, fantasizing things, and so on. So seeing the faults of those. So having really strong conviction that, letting my mind get caught up in those kind of things is not at all helpful, isn't going to take me where I want to get to, going to keep me in samsara, and so on and so on. So then that will help us have strong vigilance, introspective awareness. So we're more quick to recognize the faults and take care of them. So that will enable us to attain the 5th and 6th stages. Then, 5th power is joyous effort. You accomplish the two mental states of complete pacification and single-pointedness. Did I miss something? 5th and 6th. Yeah. Through the power of joyous effort, for you eliminate even subtle occurrences of conceptualization and secondary afflictions with effort and do not respond to them. By doing this, laxity, excitement, and so forth cannot obstruct your concentration, and concentration that arises continuously is accomplished. So joyous effort. So when we're going through this 9 stages, it says on the 5th stage, you take delight in concentration. And by the 6th stage, there's no more resistance, no more reluctance to concentrate. You're really happy to sit there and train your mind to stay on the object. So it seems like, joyous effort. You have joyous effort. So it seems like from that time on, then you're more interested in staying on your object and less interested in following distractions. So this joyous effort enables you to eliminate even like subtle thoughts and subtle excitement, subtle laxity, and secondary afflictions that can interfere with concentration. So this enables you to attain stages 7 and 8. Then you accomplish the 9th mental state, the mental state of even placement, through the power of thorough acquaintance. For concentration that operates naturally without effort arises from the power of intense familiarization with the previous powers. Seems like it should be previous powers. So, yeah, having cultivated all these powers of hearing, thinking, mindfulness, vigilance, joyous effort, and doing all the other things we need to do, we get, so this makes our mind thoroughly familiar, thoroughly acquainted with the practice. And so we get to this 9th stage where it's just like automatic. Yeah, I mean, our mind is just driving on automatic in a good way. Staying on our object of meditation without any distraction or sleepiness or any kind of fault at all. And just feeling very blissful. I think it's very blissful by this time. So you're just happy to sit there and meditate for long periods of time. So it says, these points accord with the intended meaning of Shravaka levels, so do not rely on other explanations. It seems, Geshe Zopa said there's, some explanations that aren't quite correct, so we should follow a correct one like this. The attainment of the 9th mental state is illustrated by an analogy. When you are very used to reciting a text or something like that, then whenever the motivation to recite it first arises and you begin reciting it, the recitation itself continues uninterruptedly without effort, even if your mind is distracted by something else in the meantime. That's true, isn't it? Like or after lunch recitations. So you can just go blah, 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 and our mind is thinking about other things. So that's not so helpful. But, But we have that experience of our mind just because of familiarity. We have recited it so many times that, we just start and it can just go automatically. So that's similar what happens on the 9th stage. Likewise, when you have placed your mind in equipoise once through the mindfulness of having initially directed it toward the object, then you become capable of entering concentration continuously over a long period without being interrupted by scattering, even though mindfulness and vigilance are not applied continuously. There is no need for the effort of application when mindfulness and vigilance are continuous, and that is called without application or effort. Yeah, so in the beginning, we have to make effort to cultivate mindfulness and vigilance and apply antidotes to faults, but eventually get to the point where we don't need that anymore. We don't need, of course, mindfulness is still there if we're remembering the object, but we don't have to make effort to use mindfulness. I think that's what he's saying. Okay, so we'll stop there. Any questions?
If I understand correctly, it's said that lethargy causes laxity. But that confuses me because it's like the more gross thing causes the more subtle thing, whereas I thought it'd be the other way around, like your laxity gets more and more strong and then you fall asleep. So
that's I don't know if it was Lama Tsongkhapa or Geshe. Yeah, it was Geshe Zopa. I read something from Geshe Zopa where he said that, laxity starts subtle. If you don't notice it, it gets worse, it gets more gross, and eventually you fall asleep. So that's what he said. Where does it say that lethargy causes laxity?
I thought that was in this text. I will try and find it exactly.
Well, I'll have a look as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like, because Lama Tsongkhapa said laxity isn't that clearly explained in the texts. It's not one of the mental factors that we normally study. It's not like one of the 51 mental factors. And he said it's hard to find a clear definition of what laxity is. But he was pulling out things from different texts and explaining them. So, yeah, I'll look too. There's more information in the Lamrim Chenmo than in this book, so I'll see if I can find something in there. Yeah, for next week. Yeah.
Do you think from this that there is not a fault really, but anyway, that it's not so helpful to follow the instructions of someone like Bhante Ji, to follow the Theravada instructions as trying to get a foundation, like safer, if you want to be a Mahayanist for the rest of your eons, to stay with the practice presented by like Enlam Rinpa or somebody else?
Well, I wondered about that when I was listening to Ajahn Brahm's talks when I was doing Shamatha retreat. I kind of worried a little bit. But I found, some of the things he said were really helpful, really, really helpful, and not mentioned here, but did help me in my practice. So I think if we have a good, I mean, it is important, they say, before we begin a shamatha retreat, like we're really trying to go for shamatha, it is important to have instructions, to receive instructions and understand like the whole path and everything, to have that information. And if you have a good understanding of that, then I think you could probably be in a better position to determine if what is said by a teacher from another tradition is helpful or not. That's all I can say. Yeah, I haven't really studied other traditions other than listening to those talks of Ajahn Brahm. But I think I did read Bhante Ji's Mindfulness in Plain English. That's more about mindfulness, though. I think he also has a book about concentration, how to develop concentration. I haven't read that one. So I wouldn't say, oh, ignore those books. Don't read anything but Lama Tsongkhapa. But yeah, if you do read other books, listen to other teachings, just check, compare it with what Lama Tsongkhapa says, and if it seems dodgy, contradictory, then maybe leave that aside. That's all. I don't know how to say. Yeah, I don't know what he's referring to here. Maybe like here he's referring to, because it wouldn't be Pali, in Tibet they didn't have access to teachings from other countries. So maybe it was Tibetan teachers who said certain things, that wrote certain texts that he didn't agree with, he didn't feel were a correct method. For example, I mean, it was already mentioned before, there's some who say it's important to be relaxed. The best meditation is being really relaxed. And he already said that, yeah, that can lead to laxity. So I guess he found some things he didn't agree with in some of the texts written in Tibet. That's my guess. Okay, so let's stop there and dedicate.
May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path, and all spiritual friends who practice it have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of Losang's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Idam Guratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of White Tara, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase